Hello and welcome to Cedar Hill Farm in Missouri. I was driving from Lexington, Kentucky to Alliance, Nebraska to go tour a different farm, and a friend of mine, Montreal player, reached out to some contacts of his and introduced me to Mr. Stouffer, who is having a chestnut farm and a couple of other different agricultural techniques here. And I guess you somehow were with the University of Missouri and doing some of their agroforestry?
I was on the Kapner Foundation board and had been aware of their research, and when chestnuts came up, we were grain farmers, and then I was elected to the state senate, and the legislature and the grain farming got in conflict, and we were the age that we were ready to do something different, and we were looking for something to that would give high return per acre for to pass it on to the kids, and they could either manage it or they could have professional management, but have something here that we've got small acres, 130 acres, about 20 acres of chestnuts, and that would generate enough income it wouldn't be a burden on them, and allow them to continue the process. So
a lot of people, myself included, are still getting accustomed to hearing 130 acres small. Or I was in Indiana for a little bit and they were saying 700 acres small, like 1,200 acres small, or depending.
Prior to doing this, we were farming, Sue Ellen and I were farming 2,500 acres row crop and 250 cows.
Wow.
So the 130 acres has been in the family since my ancestors were moved here as a result of the New Madrid earthquake in 1812, and so this goes back to federal grant, and been here a long time, got deep roots.
Yeah, it sounds like it does. So we might walk through a little bit of your rows here. So these are going to be your chestnut trees.
These are chestnuts.
How old are each of these trees?
Well, we started planting trees in 2009 and grafted the first ones in 2010, so they have about 10 seasons worth of graft.
What is grafting?
We planted the rootstock, and then after it had developed a good root base, we came in and grafted on. Basically, made clones out of the trees, and I planted mine closer than what's recommended, simply because I wanted to get into production, and I was getting old and wanted to see production. So. And then we'll go in and take out half of them but theoretically, it doesn't matter which tree you take out. They're all alike, if you will.
Now, when you take them out, are you going to be able to transplant them potentially somewhere else?
That's yet to be seen. My guess is no, but it's something we'll look into.
Would it be able to be? I did some volunteer work, also some work with an arborist, and he was using an air spade. Would that potentially work at all to blow the roots out enough that they could be uprooted, or?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's something we're going to be looking into. I've got my older son thinks we need to transplant them. Basically, chestnuts don't have a real strong root system, and I'm not sure.
Okay. No.
We're going to find out, but it'll be a year or two yet.
That's fine. So at what year did you actually start to get yield then, as you were saying?
I think 2013 we had maybe sold 80 pounds.
Okay.
And then this last year we sold about 8,000.
8,000 pounds.
Yeah.
When was the first year that you were really starting to get like a big production? Or how many years in, I should say, I'm sorry.
From 13 to 20. So
about 4 or 5 years in.
Yeah, these still are not. They're still not at full production. They will continue to mature, and really they probably don't hit full production until 15 to 20 years.
Okay.
And,
are chestnuts a native tree to this region?
They are not.
Okay.
These are Chinese chestnuts. They are resistant to the blight, which wiped out most of the chestnut trees in the United States.
Can you talk about that a little bit, or what that was at all?
Well, there was, and forgive me if I'm not quite right, but there were some chestnuts brought over from Europe that had the chestnut blight, and it just went through the American chestnuts and virtually killed all the trees. There may be a few scrubs around, but not very many. And I mean, chestnuts used to be, the railroads were built on chestnut ties. I mean, they were huge trees and a staple of early America. But the blight went through and pretty well wiped out the American chestnut. The Chinese chestnuts fit really well in this particular area because we're on about the same latitude, and they work well here.
Okay, wonderful. It seems like you're doing something then in between your rows here. So instead of just having, I would say, a chestnut farm, it looks like you're also doing something else. So can you explain a little bit about what that might be? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay. We grow wheat between the trees. And in Missouri, we have wet springs and dry summers. Chestnuts don't like wet feet. And if it's wet, seepy, they'll just flat die. It doesn't matter how many trees you plant there, they're not going to live. And so we plant wheat in between the trees. The wheat uses the moisture in the spring. Then when the chestnuts start producing nuts, why the wheat dies down, we use the straw to mulch and conserve the moisture. We also use drip irrigation to water the trees. And then it makes a really nice clean mat to pick up the chestnuts in the fall. And so we really like using wheat. And I have just finished cutting the wheat, so it's got a nice mat, and then I'll go through and mow out that was left, and then we'll be ready to pick up chestnuts in the fall.
When is it that you put down your drip irrigation?
We put the drip irrigation down when we plant trees.
Okay, so it's in here somewhere?
Yeah. It's the further under it's under the mat, it keeps it away from the lawnmowers.
Okay. Oh, we don't have to dig too far into that.
But it's the lawnmower finds it, the coons find it, but we've got it on 36-inch centers, and we're set up where we can irrigate the whole farm in about 72 hours.
Are you using some of the water from your pond?
We're using that as a water source. We also have a reservoir over the hill that when we run this out, we can refill it.
How has the water situation been in Missouri?
This year, we had 10 straight days of rain in May, and just last week we had 11 inches in 2 days. So we've got excess water at this point in time.
Yeah, is there anything that you had to do kind of like during those times, or?
Try to figure out a way to get out of the driveway. No, this little bridge down here, I think the water was probably 8 feet over it, and it's a tall bridge. So I mean, we had 3 feet of water in our driveway, and we've never had water there before.
Wow.
So it came down in buckets and in a hurry.
Yeah, it sounds like it did, but it looks like, at least your trees held up.
Yep.
What are what's this field over here?
Okay, those are elderberries.
Oh, okay.
And they're where you see the blooms, or where you don't see blooms, those have already are making berries, and we're in the latter stages of the blooming process. And unlike chestnuts, elderberries like lots of water, so we plant the elderberries where the chestnuts don't grow. And
okay.
We've got about 6 acres of elderberries.
And it seems like your property slopes down that way, so a lot of the water runs down into there.
That's the lower area.
How many years or growing seasons does it take for elderberries to begin their fruiting process?
We clip the blooms the first year, and then the second year you get about half crop, and then the third or fourth year it's mature. So
and then
it turns over quickly.
And then how long is that one going to last for?
Well, if you ever try to get rid of elderberries, they're a weed around here, so they're very hardy.
Wonderful.
As far as life is concerned, we do have a problem with the spotted winged Drosophilus, which is a little fly that damages a lot of fruit, and so we have to watch that. But they're pretty hardy.
What type of are you using pesticides to manage for that? Do you bring in like some type of natural predator?
There is a wasp, but as far as I know that has not been commercially done. We use pesticides very sparingly, but with that, we had with those they reproduce every week, and one fly can turn into 7,000 flies in less than a week,
Wow.
and so they can really overwhelm a crop.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be able to. Are there any other areas of production or growth that you have that you're working on? Or just in general of different stuff on your property?
Well, I mean, we still have some row crops,
Okay.
but we rent that land out. Sel and I just handle the chestnuts and the elderberries.
Yeah, how so let's say that I wanted to get into things like this. How are we going to find enough money to get this much land and go through, it's going to take, as you were saying, the 4 years to get your chestnuts production or so forth.
If you look at agriculture as a whole, you don't have to go buy thousands of acres. We've got 20 acres here.
Okay.
And we've got 1,500 trees on 20 acres. Obviously, you have to wait, but the wheat helps lower. Get some income, especially when the trees are smaller, and I think it can be an excellent starter for young folks that want to be on the farm and have a job off the farm or part-time off the farm for the first 10 years, and then they can sit back and have a pretty good income. You figure 50 pounds a tree, which is pretty conservative, multiply that times 50 to 70 per acre and multiply it times $6, it works out pretty good.
Yeah, it does. Where do you sell a majority of your chestnuts?
We have a website.
Okay.
And we sell everything online.
Oh, that's helpful. Yeah, that's really helpful then, that you can do that. Yeah, what else is it that you might like to share?
Well, I mean, it's different than what we were doing, but we really enjoy it. So we did have to put up an 8-foot fence to keep the deer out, and
Okay.
And we still fight with the coons and the possums, so they love to chew on the line. But it's doing really. I mean, we're really satisfied with what's happening.
Yeah, and like you were saying, it's something that you can kind of leave. Now, how long are the chestnut trees going to produce for? How many years is there?
I think until now we lose some because Ching in particular, which is our highest yielding variety, is also, it has a tendency to want to kick grass 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. But we lose a few trees, but their yields are far worth the trouble.
Mm-hmm.
As far as age is concerned, they'll grow until something happens to them, hit by lightning or tornadoes or whatever. But that's you don't have to replace them.
Is there any way that you could take parts of your trees and sell them as grafts to other people at this point?
We do that.
You do that as well?
Yes.
What would that whole kind of process look like or entail?
You pick the sign wood, cut the sign wood in February or late January while it's dormant, and we sell quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that's another way to kind of get. You can cut sign wood during the time before they get to producing. You're going to prune trees anyway, and so that's a source of income too.
What else have some other farmers in, I guess, this region or the greater state of Missouri been doing as newer techniques or ways to adapt, kind of going from like the larger farms to a little bit of the smaller farms? Or also, what would the University of Missouri be doing with their research? And we can move into the shade if you'd like to. Yeah.
The research farm at Hart, they do a lot of work with other trees, and they've done a lot of agroforestry work. This area here is heavy agriculture. I mean, there's it's corn and soybeans. In fact, there are not near as many cattle as there used to be, but large hog operations and corn and soybeans. I think it's an opportunity for anybody that doesn't have a lot of capital to get into agriculture, and it's just, if you got to smell diesel smoke, that's not the case. We traded our 4-wheel drive tractors in for a hoe, but we enjoy it a lot. And I think if a young person, they could start with 20 acres or 15 acres or 10 acres and really create a nice living.
Well, some of the wheat farms that I was on, it doesn't look like you're really losing all that much, even per acre, compared to.
This was not a wheat year, because, like as I said, we had
The rains.
2 weeks of rain, and then we had. But ordinarily we get between 50 and 70 bushel an acre.
Can you explain to people why the moisture quotient of wheat matters so much, or the different number that it would be sold at?
Wheat is really a dry crop area, and when it gets wet, you lose test weight. You get scabs, and you get all kinds of nasty diseases. And you can hold that some with fungicides, but there's a limit, and we went way beyond the limit this year. Wind also has a tendency, if we want to put it down, or heavy rain will put it down. So wheat likes really dry weather.
Yeah. Were there any other trees that you considered doing aside chestnuts when you were in your planting stages, or was it kind of chestnut was the one?
Well, I had been looking at the research, and
okay.
Chestnuts is what stood out. There's a tremendous demand for chestnuts. I mean,
is that because of the die-off that happened with?
It's because we have a lot of populations that are used to eating chestnuts. The Asian population, Italian population. I've got a gentleman in Chicago that calls me every year. He's 94 or 5, and he says, "I just love your chestnuts. They remind me of picking up chestnuts in Italy with my grandfather." And so it's a heart thing, so there's a large population out there. We sell into all but 4 states. California, Washington, Oregon have they won't allow Chinese chestnuts sold into that state, and in Hawaii, we've not sent any to Hawaii, but we've sent chestnuts all over the rest of the United States.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's something for me to look into now too.
We sell out in less than a week.
Wow.
So I mean, wow. Last year we throttled it down. The year before, we were struggling to fill all the orders that went out, but we've developed a mailing list, and last year, without any paid advertising, we increased our customers by 30%. So it's word of mouth works.
How many hours per week do you think that you're doing on like a busy week here?
That's really difficult. You're really not talking hours per week. Doesn't work. We probably, if you look at maybe 20 hours in February, March, something like that. The nice thing about it is everything doesn't have to be done just right now, but you've got a window to do almost all the jobs, so you can fit it in around other things. So it's hard to say how many.
Yeah.
It's intense labor to pick up the chestnuts, but that
it is a hand pick.
Yes, and we will hand pick as long as we can. That keeps the shine on the nut, and your customer sees a shiny nut. The first impression is what leads to everything. So we as long as we can, we'll pick them up by hand. Now there are harvesters, but they're basically vacuum cleaners that get a lot of dust and dirt with them, which dulls the shine. So, but when they open the package and they see a really shiny chestnut, man, it's all over.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Do you want to just tell people who you are, your website, where they can find your chestnuts if they were, looking to order them? I guess supposedly next year, because you'll probably be sold out.
Well, this is Cedar Hill Farms LLC. Our website is cedarhillfarms.com, and Bill and Sue Ellen, we just 2 old folks that enjoying being old. So. But it's been very interesting. The, there's a fear from a guy that used to go take grain to the elevator and dump it. You don't have a place to go dump it. But after we've gone through 2 or 3 seasons, there's no question that there's tremendous demand out there for chestnuts.
Well, wonderful. I'm happy that you're all finding success. Yeah.
We're enjoying it a lot.
All right, if anybody likes farm tours like this and you want to see any more of them, you can give a subscription to the Touring News YouTube channel. You can check us out live at twitch.tv/Touring News and follow on Twitter at Touring News 1. There will be some support links down below. And thank you for tuning in today. I will chat with you soon.